regions in the world, despite high death rates from AIDS.
AIDS mortality is actually having a huge effect on population size. Nevertheless, the age structure in sub-Saharan Africa is so young that there will be so many people that still need to pass through the reproductive ages that sub-Saharan Africa, even if it hit the brakes absolutely today on fertility rates, its population would nearly double over this century.
In 1950, sub-Saharan Africa had 1/3 as many people as Europe. By 2050, this African population will be triple the size of Europe's.
Rapid population growth poses a real challenge to nations. Its access, their educational system, their infrastructures, their health systems. So as a whole, it becomes a heavy burden on an economy and a governmental system that is not strong enough.
And what does it mean for these countries? It means falling per capita income. It means deteriorating social services, and it means conflict. And these will create tremendous pressures to immigrate.
Africa's population pressures will not just create economic refugees, but environmental ones as well. To meet rising demands for food, fuel, and shelter, the continent's forests are disappearing at the fastest rate in the world. As countries struggle to obtain a decent standard of living, natural environments are increasingly strained. The degradation not only threatens Africa's unique wildlife, but creates hardships for people who live off the land.
Roughly 1/3 of the people in the world still earn their living not on a job, but by growing things or catching them or picking them up off the ground. So if those ecosystems go down, those people are in very bad shape. And so that's the real risk, is that we're going to degrade ecosystems past the point where they can sustain life as we know it.
Many African states have now embraced family planning. One of the oldest and most successful programs is in Kenya. In the 70s and 80s, this East African nation was the poster child for runaway growth. But 2 decades of family planning cut fertility from around 7 to 4 children per woman.
The number of children per woman has dropped dramatically, partly as a result of their individual choices and partly because people have fought to provide reproductive health services to make it possible for them.
According to demographic models, Kenya's falling fertility places it on the threshold of a profound transition. All countries start in stage 1, where high death rates from disease make high birth rates a necessity to keep a population from being decimated.
But then, as modernization begins, the death rate falls, but the birth rate does not. And so you have a large excess of births over deaths and the so-called population explosion.
The challenge for every country is to pass rapidly through this second stage and bring birth rates back into balance with death rates, allowing the population to stabilize.
Because if countries can't get through that stage quickly, then the pressures of population growth may begin to undermine their prospects of breaking out. And if they don't break out, then chances are that eventually things will start breaking down.
Just as Kenya stands ready to reap the benefits of falling birth rates, the country is facing a stunning demographic reversal. For the first time in modern history, death rates are rising, not falling. 6 to 9% of all Kenyans are infected with HIV/AIDS, causing life expectancy to plummet from 65 to 49 years. In Kenya, AIDS and population growth have become tragically linked. Nowhere is this more evident than in the slums of Nairobi. Here, 21-year-old Florence Akimva lives with her relatives in a one-room corrugated shack. What's surprising about her family is that all 6 members are orphans. At 16, Florence was thrust into taking care of her 4 younger siblings after their parents died of AIDS. Then, the disease killed her sister, and Florence took in her 3-year-old nephew.
In fact, at times I always feel that it is a lot of burden, but because I knew there is no one to take care of them, I have just to do it now.
Florence dropped out of school and searched for ways to support her family. But with few skills, her options were bleak.
What happens with these young women when they are forced to drop out of school, very often with very basic elementary education, they wind up on the streets and they sell their bodies in order to fend for themselves. It is not uncommon to find that young women have had sex with older men for something as simple as a meal, something as simple as a bag of what we call chips.
I always feel so bad because in order to get money from the sugar daddies, you have to sleep with them, and they pay you more when you don't use the condom, and I needed money to survive.
Eventually, Florence had to break the news to her family that she too was infected with the deadly HIV virus. With treatment beyond her family's means, her plight echoes a death sentence ringing across sub-Saharan Africa. Adults between the ages of 20 and 60 are being wiped out, contorting the population pyramids of countries ravaged by AIDS into a haunting shape, with large numbers of children at the base, disappearing adults in the middle, and the few surviving seniors on top.
AIDS is cutting a huge swath through Sub-Saharan Africa's strongest resources. It's people. It's working-age people. And that is imposing a huge burden in those countries. There are currently 11 million orphans in Sub-Saharan Africa. Never before in history have we seen such a colossal burden at the number of orphans that will overwhelm the capacity of the usual social institutions that we have to deal with them.
Africa is living in an utter catastrophe right now. Millions and millions of people dying of preventable and treatable disease. Millions of children becoming orphaned. Impoverished people can't face these challenges on their own.
Today, the epidemic is spreading fastest among women. In fact, an African woman's greatest chance for getting infected is within marriage, where condoms are rarely used when families are hoping for children.
Right now, a woman has to make a choice between having a child or putting herself at risk of HIV infection. And because of that, it is clear that a prevention strategy for them is crucial.
There may soon be a breakthrough that will save women's lives. At the Population Council in New York City, scientists have discovered compounds that prevent the HIV virus from infecting human cells. Called microbicides, the hope is that they will chemically block or kill the virus during intercourse. The goal is to develop a vaginal gel that can protect women from disease if their partners fail to wear a condom.
Some of these products may also have the ability to be contraceptive, but I think the main issue is that a woman has control over its use. She can decide when to use it.
As we've seen in the family planning world, it is women who primarily take responsibility for protection and have to decide what actually is made available to women, even if they were 60% efficacious, not 100% efficacious, even 60% efficacious, they could avert millions of infections.
I have to drive that to work every day. Please, my car's too
In
bossy.
several sub-Saharan African countries, AIDS has reversed population growth. But in most, births far exceed deaths, partly because only 19% of women here use birth control, in contrast to 61% of women worldwide. Although more young people than ever will need family planning, funding has not kept pace. To complicate matters, the United States has blocked support to clinics offering abortion-related care or counseling, even if U.S. funds are not used for these services. As a result, many have closed.
It is a tragedy because birth rates are not coming down just on their own. They're coming down because women are accessing family planning services. And when women can use contraception, they do not need to have abortions.
The toll of unwanted pregnancy can be seen in the wards of Kenyatta National Hospital. Half of all adolescent girls in the country bear children by age 19. Many don't have the means